Welcome to Writing the Introduction and Conclusion. Today we're going to be talking about what you can do to make a great introduction and a conclusion that not only grabs your audience's attention and introduces your paper in a way that makes your audience want to keep reading, but we're also going to learn how to do a conclusion that pulls everything together in a creative and original way. So I'm assuming that you have either A, planned your paper in a rough outline so that you know what's going to be in each paragraph, or B, that you have written your body paragraphs and all you have left is your introduction and conclusion. Those things should be done first before you get started because you can't introduce something that you don't know yet. So you also need to download the handout that I will be using that will be in the comments section below. Okay, so your introduction is made up of three parts. It first starts with a hook, which is followed by a bridge, which is followed by your thesis statement. So we're going to be working backwards a little bit. We're going to write that thesis statement first because it will be the inspiration for the hook and the bridge. Alright, so step one, we have to figure out our thesis. As I hope you already know, a thesis is a one-sentence summary of the entire paper. It should answer the prompt of your paper in a nutshell. Think about the genie in Aladdin when he says, "All that cosmic power, living space." It's the entire thing summed up into one. So to figure out what your thesis is, all we have to do is summarize each paragraph and sum up those topics in one sentence. So pretend with me, if I was writing a paper about why or why not a monkey should be a personal pet, then my paragraph summary, and now this is simplified, might look something like this. In paragraph 1, I might explore what a monkey needs to eat. In paragraph 2, I might explore what kind of habitat you would need to create for your monkey. And in paragraph 3, I would explore what you need to do to keep your monkey clean. So you would use my list of what my paragraphs, this would be either my paragraphs written or this would be my paragraphs in a rough outline. I would need to use this list of topics to write my thesis. So we said that that thesis is a one-sentence summary of the entire paper. So you have options of how to do this. So the first option is that you can just simply list your main topics. Now I'm just going to be forthright with you. This option is your third grade elementary school option. So if I was going to list the things that you would need to consider, it would be something like this. Before choosing a monkey as a pet, one should know. List 1, all about the monkey's diet. List item number 2, habitat and hygiene needs. So if you are drawing a complete and total blank and you have absolutely no clue what to do, this is option A. But a better option is to think about what everything in your list has in common. So what does knowing about the diet, the hygiene, and the habitat have in common? Well, you could sum it up by saying before choosing a monkey as a pet owner certainly has a lot to learn. And that way you leave at least a little mystery to your paper so that it's not such an obvious roadmap. Either way, it's got to sum up the paper in a nutshell. So pause the video and summarize your paragraphs or look at your outline. Think about the main topics that you're going to be covering and go ahead and fill your thesis in here. Okay, so now that we have your thesis, we're going to write your hook. If you didn't pause the video, stop. You've got to write your thesis first because your thesis is your inspiration for your hook. You're going to be writing your hook based off of the main idea in your thesis. So you can't do your hook properly until your thesis is done. So the reason I call it as a hook is I want you to imagine the classic scene of the redneck in the bar where he looks across the bar and he sees the hot chick that he wants. So he takes out his imaginary fishing rod and he casts it across the bar. He hooks her, their eyes meet, and he reels it in. So he pulls her and she plays along, she dances over to him as if she's hooked. Well, that's what you want to do. You want to capture your audience's attention and you want to make them want to keep reading. First impressions mean a lot. So you want to make sure that they are impressed by what you say in your hook so that they automatically, in their subconscious, assume that you are intelligent and that what you say is going to matter. So there are several ways that you can get your audience's attention. I'm going to run through these right quickly. For example, you can use some sort of interesting fact that relates to your main idea of your thesis. For example, if I was writing about racism, then I could use this interesting fact that the Pentagon has twice as many bathrooms as necessary. And that would be because during the time of segregation, the Pentagon was built and they had to have separate bathrooms for the two separate races. And so that way I would need to cite that source, but I would do something or present something engaging for my audience. If your paper is lighthearted, you could start off with humor. The example here is when my older brother substituted fresh eggs for our hard-boiled Easter eggs. He didn't realize that our father would take the first crack at hiding them. This is more for a narrative paper. If you are writing a research paper, you want to avoid the use of any personal pronoun. But if you are writing a narrative, there would be a story about something that happened, then you can start off with a bit of humor. Option 3 is one of the easiest ones to come up with, and that's to quote someone's famous words or thought-provoking words. And if you use a source, you need to cite it. For example, if I'm writing about women's progression in the political field, I could say that Hillary Rodham Clinton once said that there cannot be true democracy unless women's voices are heard. Notice I've done a couple of things here. I introduced my quote. That would be, remember when we learned ties, the tag introduce, embed, or split? I have introduced my quote. So you never want to just stick the quote in there. You also need to cite it if you've gotten it from a source. And if you go to like famousquotes.com and you find a quote, you need to spend a little time figuring out what the original source was and cite that. Do not cite brainingquotes.com. Because it will make you look like you are not well read. So we at least want to create the appearance that you're well read, even if you got your source from brainingquotes.com. If you need help, let me know, and I will walk you through how to do that. Okay, so option 4 is to engage the reader's curiosity. Like a duck's quack doesn't echo if you're writing a paper about, I don't know what you'd be writing a paper about, to tell you the truth. But if you can come up with some, it's kind of like option 1, an amazing fact. If you're doing a narrative, you can start off with an anecdote, which is just a fancy word for a short story. So yesterday morning, I watched my older sister. As my older sister left for school with a bright white glob of toothpaste gleaming on her chin, I felt no regret at all until she stepped onto the bus, which may be a paper about, I don't know, the psychology of guilt or something. And then finally, number 6, this is a really good one if you do it correctly, but there's a lot of ways that students do this wrong, and that is that you can ask a non-obvious thought-provoking question. Now, a thought-provoking question does not include saying, have you ever thought about racism? If your paper is going to be about racism. However, you may want to say something about something non-obvious about the effects of racism in our society. So the example that I have here is, what could you do if you could play God for the day? And then you could also incorporate that with an amazing, followed by, this should say, incorporating with a quote or another amazing fact. So you might want to put 2 of those together. So as long as your question isn't very predictable, this one is good to go. Alright, so pause the video in just a second and go ahead and look at your thesis and write your hook. Now remember that your hook often depends on the tone that you want to establish, and as I have mentioned, it should be about the subject of your thesis. For example, let's pretend I was writing my paper about choosing a monkey as a pet. I might write my hook about responsibilities. I might look up a poignant quote about responsibilities, or I might find some sort of fact about how people could embrace responsibilities at certain ages or something. I don't know. I'm making stuff up. But anyway, because I don't want to look up a quote about a monkey because it would be a little too obvious. All right, so pause the video. Review the list and model one of these for your hook. Then you can go ahead and write your hook here because we're going to put something in the middle. Alright, step 3. I know we're doing this out of order. we are writing our thesis, which goes last, and we've already written our hook, which goes first. Now we're going to put a sentence in the middle that bridges, as the name suggests, the two of them together, because we need a sentence or two to make the connection from our hook to our thesis. So I have labeled the hook, bridge, and thesis in the paragraph below. So as we read each one, let's think about how the sentence in the middle connects the hook to the idea of the thesis. So example 1 says, the Pentagon has twice as many bathrooms as are necessary. The famous government building was constructed in the 1940s when segregation laws required that separate bathrooms be installed for people of African descent. That's my hook. That's what's going to capture my audience's attention. My thesis is, across the United States, there are many examples of leftover laws and customs that reflect the racism that once permeated American society. So my entire paper is going to be about how we still have facets of the racism that is supposedly been eradicated. So my bridge to connect those together is, this building isn't the only American icon that harkens back to this embarrassing and hurtful time in our history. My phrase that connects this to the sentence before is this building. And then my phrase that leads to my hook would be embarrassing and hurtful time. So let's do one together, and I want you to figure out what my hook, my bridge, and my thesis are. This should be hook. Sorry. Alright, so when my older brother substituted fresh eggs for our hard-boiled eggs, he didn't realize our father would take the, I get it, it's a joke, first crack at hiding them. My brother's holiday ended early that particular day in 1991, but the rest of the family enjoyed the warm April weather outside on the lawn until late evening. Perhaps it was the warmth of the day and the joy of eating Easter roast while Tommy contemplated his actions that make my memories of Easter so sweet. Whatever the true reason, the fact is that my favorite holiday of the year is Easter. Well, it shouldn't be that difficult to figure out what our hook is, because it's what comes first, and that would be this anecdote right here. So then it also shouldn't be very hard to figure out what my thesis is, because it comes last, and that's this sentence right here. So what we have to figure out is, what does this sentence do here to bridge the two together? So I think we have imagery, warmth of the day, and joy of eating Easter roast that connects to the sentence before, and memories of Easter so sweet that connects to the sentence after. So your bridge should have a reference to the sentence before and then a reference to the sentence after. We'll look at it one more example. So let's think about what the hook, the bridge, and the thesis are. I've already color-coded this one for you. Hillary Rodham Clinton once said that there cannot be true democracy unless women's voices are heard. In 2006, when Nancy Pelosi became the nation's first female Speaker of the House, one woman's voice rang out clear. So here's my hook, where I have combined a quote with a fact that kind of go together. So my thesis is, the historical event also paved the way for Senator Clinton as she warmed her vocal cords in preparation for the presidential race. So the entire paper is going to be about how Senator Clinton is running for president as the first possible female president. And so what phrases here connect to the sentence before and the sentence after? With this development, democracy grew to its truest level ever in terms of women's equality. So with this development refers to the sentence before, and then women's equality would refer to the phrase after, because it would be the first time a woman ever tried to run for, or ever ran for president. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so pause the video and write your bridge. And then, after you do so, put them all in order, and then you'll be able to copy and paste them as the first paragraph in your paper. Make sure the first line of that paragraph is indented 5 spaces. And other than being double spaced, it should look just like the sample paragraphs above. After you have written your introduction, then you will come back and look at the instructions for your conclusion. Okay. So now that your conclusion is written, now that your introduction is written, your conclusion can follow, and it is made up of 3 things. And you can do these things in any order. Now, the order of the introduction is kind of limited to the order that I told you, but these you can play around with just a little bit. So you just need these 3 things some way, somehow. The first thing is a reference to your hook, and then you need to rephrase or restate your thesis. And then you need a so what statement that explains why your topic should matter to your audience. So let's pretend that this is your introductory paragraph. You may remember it from higher up in the page where we were using it before. So if we were talking about how the Pentagon has twice as many bathrooms as are necessary because the building was constructed in the 1940s and represents some leftover segregation laws, the first thing I want to do is return to that idea that I used. This will bring my paper full circle by coming back to the idea that I started with and providing me with an easy way to close creatively. So I may come up with something like this. Thankfully, all those extra Pentagon restrooms are no longer needed because segregation is no longer a part of our society. So I said something about the bathrooms, but I said something that would close out my paper because I'm talking about how we are eradicating, or trying to anyway, eradicate racism from our society. So you may want to pause the video and think about how you can recycle your hook. Alright, now that your hook is done, or your recycled hook is done, I want you to restate your thesis. So our original thesis is, across the United States, there are many examples of leftover laws and customs that reflect racism that once permeated American society. So I need to use that general idea. So what is the general idea? That there's leftover evidences of racism. So I just need to say something about how we have leftover evidence of racism. So I'm going to follow this. Thankfully, all Pentagon restrooms are no longer needed because segregation is no longer a part of our society. So I'm going to say something like, however, even though American society has made progress in ending racism, many racist ideas still cling to the corners of our mind. That way, I took the idea that we have leftover laws and customs that reflect that racism, and I rephrased it as racist ideas still cling to the corners of our mind. So go ahead, pause the video, and rewrite your thesis statement to follow your recycled hook. Alright, now that your recycled thesis statement and hook are complete, we're going to end the paper with the so what statement, if you choose to do them in this order. Once you get used to doing these, it's fine if you mix them up, like I said before. So your so what statement reminds your reader how important your topic is without saying this topic is important because. Now you can think in your head this topic is important because and just write down what comes next. But you definitely don't want to say this phrase, you just want to think it. For example, in the paragraph above, you might say something like, in your head, this topic is important because, and then you would write, it's only when Americans begin to view other people as people instead of those other people that Dr. Martin Luther King's dreams of equality for all will really come true. And it's up to you and I to be a part of this dream. You can only do the you and I if your English teacher has said that it's okay for you to use personal pronouns. We could say instead it's up to all Americans to be a part of this dream. So my conclusion would read like this altogether. Thankfully, all those Pentagon restrooms are no longer needed because segregation is no longer a part of our society. However, even though American society has made progress in ending racism, many racist ideas still cling to the corners of our mind. So what? Why is that important? It is only when Americans begin to view other people as people instead of those other people that Dr. Martin Luther King's dreams of equality for all will really come true. And it's up to you and I to be a part of this dream. So my so what really focuses on the fact that it's important to take a look at how we may be being racist and work on continuing to make ourselves better in that way. So go ahead and write your so what statement and then do a little dance. Maybe eat a cookie because, woo, your paper is drafted.